wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every other year it has been like, Cade McNamara threw like 5, and Petrus had like 7 or whatever. I mean, it was just they haven't had uh, some of it's injuries too. I mean, Cade getting hurt, Deacon having to come in, Sully having to come in last year, Petrus with Padilla and different things. I mean, it's been a snake bit position, but so I looked up like Gronowski's averaged, and I took his last 3 years because that 2020, 2021 season kind of thing that was a spring year for them. It was shortened due to COVID and everything. So I just threw that year out. It's not even considered. But the last 3 years he was with Jackrabbits, he averaged like 397 on the ground per year on and usually right around 100 attempts. So I've like thrown out the comp of like Riley Leonard, and maybe the passing numbers and we'll get to those in a minute, but the rushing numbers, I was like, holy cow, Riley Leonard ran a lot last year for Notre Dame, more than I thought. He ran 184 times for over 900 yards. There is zero chance that Iowa was going to run Gronowski that much. I mean, Tim Lester's essentially said that they don't really want to run him as much, but they're going to run it. And he said he can run and do those things. So he'll go get like some RPOs, and he'll scramble on third down when it's 3rd and 4 and he's back to pass and there's nobody open, and he'll run for 5. Those sorts of things. So I think he'll get over 400. Iowa hasn't had a quarterback to rush for over 400 yards since Brad Banks in '02.
Jeez.
He, he only had 423 yards that year. So got that going for him. That's an interesting number. Although Beathard had a 100 rush season once. He had for over 300 yards. He just didn't rush for a bunch. I think that was 2015. He ran it 100 times, or was credited with 100 rushes. So got that. Now, what about passing? I've got to look at this a little bit because he was at like 2,800 yards a season, and just over 20 touchdowns, like 25 touchdowns, something like that, the last 3 years. So I don't know that 2,800 yards is going to be there. Maybe it will. So I just kind of put the baseline at like 2,500 yards and somewhere between 21 and 25 touchdowns. And he's really been good with the interceptions. It's single digits. It's 5, 6. He's averaged about 6 interceptions a year the last 3 years. So, and I 65% completion percentage. So I think that's kind of realistic. If he can get all of those numbers to kind of translate, it's a different level of football, more challenges, but I think it's realistic for him. 2,500, between 21 and 25 touchdowns. Keep the interceptions about 5, 6, 7 this year, and complete 65% of his passes. I think those are realistic, and 400 yards rushing. And get in the end zone, 6 to 8 times. I think that's something that they could really live with.
No, I think you're talking those numbers. Iowa fans can do more than live with those. That would be like an offensive explosion at Iowa. Talk about the offense, maybe bigger picture, not just
Yeah.
with Gronowski, but we've talked with Pat a ton about it, and he was on the show last week kind of talking about it. And he used the number 10%. I don't know if 10% or more, but Coach Lester didn't get everything he wanted in. I mean, it was a quicker process, and I think you're going to see it evolve even more this year. Kind of talk about that, and somebody who watches the offense a lot and scrimmages like this and kids' days and all those kind of things. It's going to continue to evolve, and I think that's something that's intriguing because Tim Lester did a hell of a job last year, Tom. The offense was better despite injuries and lack of quarterbacks and all those kind of things. Big picture for the offense, what might it look like this year?
Yeah, I think and they averaged 27. I will be stunned if they don't end up averaging 30. I really will. I'll be pretty surprised because I think they're going to have really good offense this year. I think it's not going to be maybe as explosive on the ground because I don't know that Kamari and Jazz and TJ Washington or Brubendall or somebody like that are as explosive as Caleb Johnson. I mean, Caleb Johnson was, he was Aaron Judge. Go to Shohei Ohtani. He'd go to the plate and he'd hit a home run, fairly frequently. And I don't know that they have a back like that this year. But they've got a lot of guys who can hit doubles and grind it out. And I think that's kind of what they're going to do. And I think the pass game's going to be better. Like he had to have that ready for Sunday because they had meetings on Sunday. So it was like, what do you do? It's just, it was a challenge for him. He was running on the hamster wheel every week, and now he's got more support. One thing he said, he'll be able to stay up in the box, and then, he might have like Warren down on the sidelines because they can have those analysts down there. So that's going to help communication with the quarterbacks, and a guy who's coached quarterbacks down there on the sidelines, working with Gronowski and working with Hank Brown or whoever, ends up being the backup quarterback.
Who is that backup quarterback?
I think right now it'd probably be Hank, but I wouldn't discount Jeremy Hecklinski, the backup, the kid who came from Wake Forest this spring. Now he's drinking from the fire hose right now because he didn't have spring ball at Iowa, so he's getting comfortable with the offense and practice and everything. So I think there's going to be a push there for sure because I know Warren really liked him and thought he could be a starter at Wake this year if they were still there.
Yeah.
So he'll, I think, but I think right now it's Hank, and then then it's a lot of young guys. So it's interesting.
I'm a Hank guy because he came to my dad's golf outing and he was a really good guy here.
Hank's great.
Yeah, so rooting for him. You mentioned Caleb Johnson and maybe now guys that hit doubles instead of home run. If we would have sat here last year and said Caleb Johnson was going to do what he's going to do, we would have been. It was Moulton was the guy that you
Kamari.
were. Yeah, I mean, I think that was your pick to click was Kamari, and it ended up being Caleb. So with that being said, I think that can happen a lot. I want to talk to you about two numbers before I let you go. The first is 70 and then 27, and I'll explain them as we go, but we'll start with 70. Kirk Ferentz turned 70 years old last week. First off, with that being said, I remember last year, and it's even in the Open, I think there's a little clip of me doing an interview with
69.
Kirk Ferentz last year, and it was 69 last year, and I said he still looked good. Tom, he looks fantastic. He hasn't missed a beat. He physically, mentally, all those kind of things. Just your interactions, especially with Coach Ferentz the last, several years, but recently, like you wait for 70 years old, you don't see 70 years old. And I don't mean that just like sugarcoating it or anything like that. He's doing fantastic. And Kirk Ferentz, what do you think?
It's kind of a medical marvel. He's 70, still moving around really well, and his mind seems sharp as ever. He doesn't look like a guy that's sunsetting, if you know what I mean, where it's just like into coaching, where it's just like he's not, and I think he'd have been impacted if college football hadn't changed as much as it had from a staffing perspective, where now a lot of crap that he probably had to deal with his first 20 years because of all the growth of support staff and everything else, he's been able to kind of shuffle that off to somebody else. You take care of this, you take care of that. I mean, if he didn't have general manager Tyler Barnes handling all this other stuff, if he was having to deal with salary cap stuff or whatever, all that nonsense, I think he probably would have said, you know what, I didn't sign up for this. I don't need this. But he's got people who handle all this stuff. So I think it helps him on a daily basis to just do it, be more of a CEO than having to be on the front line and kind of oversee things. And he's still got a very keen eye for football. There's no question, especially on the offensive line. He knows how to coach it, and he commands the respect of his players. They want to play for him. He's still a great leader for this football program.
You look at it, and we've kind of talked like, what inning are we in? Are we in the bottom of the eighth, the top of the ninth, all those kind of things when it comes to his career? Tom, he doesn't look like somebody who's did the top 27 games of the Kirk Ferentz era over at the Hawkeye Report. And I listened to the Hawkeye Report podcast with Pat Angerer. I don't know why you would have that knucklehead on anything, more or less your podcast. But it's out there. And the number 2 game was the Orange Bowl in 09. Oh yeah, 09.
That's exactly where they were.
The moment outweighs probably the fact they lost the lead and messed up the play.
So it's a wild game. That LSU team was so talented. You know, Jamarcus Russell comes in at quarterback and leads them, gets them in the lead. Nick Saban's coaching that team.
Yeah,
man, just crazy. I mean, they had so much talent on that team.
I do have to call you out you called out Joe Conklin on the podcast. Yeah, I'm glad that Pat had his guys back and set the record straight, that it wasn't him who messed up a certain play. How dare you do that to JoJo?
I know. Well, you had to bring him up.